Hey everyone, and welcome back to my playthrough of the first Battle of Kernstown from GMT Games' Death Valley, Battles for Shenandoah. This is going to be the 1700 hours turn, and we're going to probably see Tyler getting close with Jackson's men, and hopefully Kimball's going to take up position on Jackson's flank to pressure him there. But I think some of Jackson's artillery, a couple of regiments, maybe Ashby's cavalry are going to harass Sullivan's flank and make it a little difficult for him to just ignore them. But anyway, let's get into the game turn. First thing we're going to have to do is initiative. So we're going to see who gets initiative this turn. And it is the Union by a long shot. And now we have to determine chain of command. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of units and regiments and brigades out of command, especially Tyler, Burke, well, all these artillery units down here. So yeah, I'll go ahead and mark them all out of command and bring you back to show you how that looks. All right, so unfortunately, because I'm an idiot, Jackson couldn't, his command range is an 8, and it gets only to, I think, the hex before Burke's. And I also I should have moved Burke's by himself, separate from the 42nd Virginia, to try to get him up in here, because now his 2 regiments up on the line are out of command. So I believe they'll get 2 fewer activations than normal, because they get -1 for Burke's being out of command, and then they get 1 fewer activation for, for being out of command themselves. So that's unfortunate. On the Union side, Tyler, of course, is out of command, but because he's already done his brigade change orders, he's good. Or it doesn't really affect the fact that he's out of command, except he'll get 1 fewer activations this turn. Speaking of activations, let's determine our efficiency. So the Union first, and we pull a 2 again, which means Tyler will get 1 activation this turn, unfortunately, because Kimball doesn't modify that chip pool at all. And now the Confederates pull a 1. Yikes. That means they get a 2 overall because Jackson's a +1. And then Burke's himself with, his 42nd Virginia gets 1 activation. And then these 2 units get 0 activations. A minimum of 1. So they get 1 activation. So yeah, that's the activation efficiency determination. Now we do division orders. Everybody's going to stay in the orders they are. There's no sense changing anybody. And we go to the activation segment. So since the Union won the initiative, they get to choose which AM they get to play first. And of course, they're going to choose Shields' AM, which means 1 of Shields' AMs goes into the cup, 2 of Jackson's go into the cup, and then all the other good stuff. And now we're into our first activation, which is Shields' / Kimball's division. So I think we're going to go the easier stuff first. So we'll do Sullivan and Kimball's brigades, and then we'll go over to Tyler. So I'll go ahead and move them and bring you back to show you how it looks like once we do that. And real quick, B Battery, the 1st West Virginia Artillery, is now attached to Daum, and I think the 5th Ohio was originally attached to Kimball, and now it's returned to Sullivan. So that was supposed to happen in the division orders segment. All right, so Kimball and Sullivan have moved up into the face of the Confederate artillery, and both brigade leaders kept their units outside the 3 range limit for non-phasing fire for artillery. So that'll allow them to get up a little bit or coordinate their movement a little better, I think, in the next activation, hopefully. Famous last words, maybe. And give the Confederate artillery too many targets to shoot at, and maybe coordinate their advance with Tyler's attack. Speaking of Tyler's attack, let's go over and see what he's looking like. All right, here we are up close and personal. So I am going to take these out of command markers away. We know they only get one activation, and I'd rather see the counters. We're going to have to keep popping them up anyway. Now, basically, Tyler is going to do his advance into the frontal hexes and get into shock combat. So I'll go ahead and pick out their advances and bring you back to show you what that looks like. All right, here's Tyler's charge. So for shock targets, so first let me start over here. So the 110th Pennsylvania, because it started in this hex, it would have to go over a stream and into a wall hex, which would have cost too much movement points because you only get half movement, and they only have 5 movement on their disordered side, so they're just going to have to sit here and, I guess, shoot, which we'll just do real quick. So they're shooting with 5 strength points. They get a -2 DRM for being low ammo, -1 for being disordered, -2 for muskets, -1 for the 37 Virginia being in a stonewall hex. So it's a -6 overall, which, you know, this isn't really, probably isn't worth shooting, but whatever. So a 1 on the 5 column is nothing. 37 Virginia gets to shoot back with a +1 for the rifles, -1 for being disordered. It's just a straight up 0. Is that 9? And they have 7 strength points. So on the 7, a 9 is a 1 step loss and an automatic disorder. 110th Pennsylvania is already disordered, so they take 1 strength loss, so they're down to 4 steps. But then they take another step loss for the second disorder, and they retreat 1 hex. So, yep, definitely not worth it. That was my bad. Sorry, guys. And now we go to shock combat resolution. All right, so for shock combat, I'm just going to warn you, there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of like nuanced rules or some stuff like that. So probably we'll get this wrong. That being said, we're going to give an honest go of it. So we're going to designate all targets. So everybody's just going to kind of go to the right. So 7th Indiana is going to shock the 4th Virginia. 1st West Virginia is going to shock 21st Virginia. 7th Ohio, 2nd Virginia, and whoever's under here with them, 27th Virginia. And 29th Ohio is going to shock, I think this is the 33rd Virginia, and Garnett. So we first do our retreat before shock. It's tempting to retreat the 4th Virginia. I think we might, because we have the 1st Virginia Battalion still holding this flank, and we have the Allegheny artillery, which can shoot off if they get a good line of sight. So let's do that, I think. So we retreat 4th Virginia, 1 hex, 7th Indiana moves into its vacated hex. And 4th Virginia is not disordered, so it doesn't have to do a disorder roll. And I think, and that concludes the 7th Indiana's shock attack. And 7th Indiana doesn't suffer an automatic disorder or anything like that because it didn't actually go through the shock resolution procedure. So that's the only retreat before shock. Now, green attacker commitment check we don't have to do. There's no green attackers. So now we do the defender's pre-shock cohesion check. And we have our chart here to help with DRMs. There is going to be a leader with Garnett in one of them, and the only other one that's going to be effective is unit is disorder, so +1. Nobody else is being attacked from the flank or rear. So we just go down the line. So the 21st Virginia has a cohesion of 7, and nothing else. There's no other modifiers. A 6, we're good. Next, the 2nd Virginia has a cohesion of 8. 6 is good again. The 27th Virginia has a cohesion of 8. 4 is good. And now there's Garnet with the 33rd Virginia, who is disordered, so it's a +1, -1 sort of thing, so it evens out. So they have a cohesion of 7. And a 4 is good enough. So everybody passes their pre-shock cohesion check. Now we do our pre-shock reaction fire. So we'll just go down the line for that as well. So first we'll have the 27th Virginia fire off on the 1st West Virginia. So they're shooting with 5 strength points at a range of, well, they're using prepared fire at a range of 1. So a rifle musket gets a +1 at a range of 1. There's no terrain, so we're just at +1 for the range, +1 for prepared fire, so +2 on this die roll. Ooh, almost a 7. Instead it's a 5, so it's going to be low ammo. On a 5 is a disorder check. 1st West Virginia has a cohesion of 6, straight disorder check. A 7 is more than 6, so they're now disordered. The 2nd Virginia is going to fire at the 7th Ohio, so they also get a +2 for the rifles and the prepared fire at a range 1, and they're firing with 6 strength points, and unfortunately it's just a 3. On the 6th table is a disorder check. 7th Ohio has a cohesion of 6. Oh, almost. I think the attack marker saved them. 2 is less than 6, so they're good, but under here, the 27th Virginia is going to fire with 1 strength point, +2. So they're also, sorry, -2 for the low ammo. So it's just a 3. On the 1 column is nothing. So 7th Ohio is going to get in, not disordered, which is going to hurt that stack for sure. Now the 33rd Virginia is going to fire at the 29th Ohio. They're going to be shooting with 5 strength points. They're disordered, but they get the +2 from the rifled muskets and prepared fire, so +1 on a 5 strength point shot. It's a 2 is a D -2. They have a cohesion of 5. A 7 -2 is 5, lucky devils. So they're going to go in as well. And now we're back to the shock procedure. So now we resolve shock, and we're going to go, I think, right to left. No, we're going to go left to right. So we determine, so for this one, I should have just left them off. So Garnett's there with his 1-star ranking. So the odds ratio is 9 to 5. So since it's 9 to 5 and the defender is getting a terrain bonus, we round down to a 1.5 to 1, which means the odd ratio benefit for this one is +1. The defender is disordered for +2. They did charge because they moved first for +3. They're not stacked. They don't get terrain. They're not charging lancers. So +3. The attacker is disordered for +2 now. Attacker, and then the terrain chart is another -1. So they're at +1. And now we resolve the shock. So +1 on this die roll. 0 + 1 is 1, less than or equal to 1. Attacker retreats. Attacker retreats 1 hex and is disordered. Defender may use shock continuation. So they retreat 1 hex. They get a 2nd disorder. And now we look on the shock 2nd disorder table. This is a shock table result. So we roll for the UDD. If they pass, they just lose 1. Retreat. If they fail, though, they rout. So the 29th Ohio has a cohesion of 5. Oh, they just pass. So they lose 1 SP and retreat 1 to 2 hexes. So the 29th Ohio retreat another hex is down to 8 steps. Still disordered. 33rd Virginia now has the option for continued shock. All right, because we're crazy, the 33rd Virginia is going to continue shock into the 7th Ohio. They're hitting them in the flank, as far as I can tell. They're charging with Garnett, which I think will help them out a little bit. They won't be getting shot at during the charge, during the what's it called? The pre-shock reaction fire. So we're just going to do it because why not? And the Page County boys, that's where I live, they would have been part of the 33rd Virginia, so we're going to try to be the heroes of Kernstown here. So now we go straight up to the regular shock resolution table. So we designate 33rd Virginia to 7th Ohio. Retreat before shock is discretion the better part of valor here for Tyler. I think we're going to retreat because our right flank is already now blown wide open. And even though it's tempting to get in there with the 33rd Virginia and maybe kill Garnett, hopefully they'll be exposed now, and they're going to be out from behind the stone wall and easy pickings for the rifles of the 29th Ohio if we can rally them. So I think we're going to retreat. They're not disordered, so they don't have to do the UDD. And now the 33rd Virginia just moves into that hex. So the 33rd Virginia doesn't have to do the post-shock automatic disorder. Now, I have to, this is something I'm not too sure of, but now we have to go back to the 29th Ohio and check to see if they have to finish the shock resolution, and the last one is automatic post-shock automatic disorder. And I think it still applies. So we look on the second disorder table, automatic post-shock disorder for infantry, they lose 1 SP. So I think 29th Ohio loses another SP and is down to 7. So now we continue our shocks, and we're over here at the 1st West Virginia against the 27th Virginia. So for the shock DRMs are the same, I think. Well, no, not quite the same. So the DRMs for this attack are, the odds ratio is 1/2 to 1 for a +1. The defender is not disordered. They do get a charge benefit +1, so +2 overall. They get no positive benefits for the terrain. The attacker is disordered, so it's a back down to a +1. And the terrain chart. So the terrain, if we pull them off, you'll see they're going up a minor slope and they're attacking into a stone wall hex. So up the minor slope is a -1, and the stone wall hex is a -1 as well. So overall, that's a -1 DRM. And now looking at it, now that the counters are out of the way, I realized that the 29th Ohio should have gotten another -1 for going up the little minor slope here. However, that wouldn't have changed the result. It just would have been back down to a 0, and the attacker would have still retreated. So he dodged that bullet. Now it's a -1 for the 1st West Virginia's shock on the 21st Virginia. So a 4 is down to a 3. So a standoff. Both sides are disordered. So we're back on the shock table results because 1st West Virginia is already disordered. So for the second disorder, they have to roll a UDD. So if they pass, they lose an SP and retreat. If they fail, though, they're routed. So it's a straight die roll. They have a cohesion of 5. Yep, and they pass. So they just lose 1 SP and retreat. Now we have to roll to see if that SP loss was Tyler on a 0. 7, he's fine. So we resolve the shock. We don't advance anybody. No continuation. Now the post-shock automatic disorder. Again, for infantry, the second already on disorder. Another disorder is just a loss of an SP. In this case, though, the SP loss can't affect the leader. So Tyler is safe in that front. That represents straggling and whatnot. So that's all the shock resolved. This low ammo was on the 21st Virginia. And that is Tyler's brigade's activation. And remember, he's out of command, and the Union efficiency was only 2, so that's his only activation for the 1700 hours turn. So Jackson's going to have a real chance to now consolidate his position and focus on Kimball and Sullivan, while Tyler is going to probably have to take another turn to rally and get his units back in order. Hopefully, maybe the cavalry can at least be a nuisance on the left flank, but we'll see. So that's the Union turn complete. So now we go ahead and pull our next activation marker, and it is the Confederate cavalry. So Ashby and Chew's battery are down here. What we're going to do with him is we're going to try to move him all the way up into this area to get on this tiny little ridge, maybe this ridge, and hit the flank of Sullivan's brigade, and to make sure that the Union cavalry doesn't come and sweep the artillery train that we have coming along. So I'll go ahead and move everybody and show you where they ended up. So Ashby and the 7th Virginia Cavalry just moved up towards the back road and the Mahaney house, while Chew's battery moved up onto this little ridge. Now the next chip is the Union Cavalry. So the only significant movement that happened with the Union Cavalry was the 1st Michigan and the 1st Ohio Cavalry moved up to here to try to get a shot off at the 37th Virginia, but since they're under advance orders, they'll have to wait until the next turn or their next activation, I should say, to shoot off their carbines. So now we do our next activation marker. It is the Union Artillery. So let's go over to Pritchard's Hill. So now we have Dom, who is going to fire all the batteries under his command at the Confederate batteries on Sandy Ridge in the hopes that he can suppress them, so that when Shields/Kimball gets his next activation marker, they'll be able to get up there in the face of them. And I forgot, but Dom traces his command to Kimball, and so when he's out of command, he activates with 2 artillery AMs. So this is his first of 2 activations for this turn. So first E battery with its 10-pound Parrots is going to fire at the West Augusta artillery. So it's at a range of 12. 10-pound Parrot at a range of 12 is a -1. They're shooting at a higher elevation, so they don't get that bonus. So it's a -1 on this die roll for a 6 firepower battery. Ooh, a 1 to a 0, even at a 6 is a 0. Oh, sorry. So that must have sailed clean over Sandy Ridge. So now let's do a 12 range shot with another 10-pound Parrot battery. This time it's a 4 SP, or a 4 firepower strength battery. Same DRM, so it's a -1. Oh, an 8, a lot better this time on a 4. So we have a D +2. Not looking good for the West Augusta battery. Their cohesion is a 7. Oh, a 3 +2, that was 5, so they're good to go. Oh, of course, I always forget, like usual. West Augusta battery gets to fire back at the shooters, but neither section, the smooth bores and the howitzers, can reach, so they can't fire back. So that's these 2 batteries fired. Now we're going to shoot off B battery at Well, I guess we'll change his facing. And now we'll shoot at probably the same battery, so because they can't fire back at us. 10-pound powered as well, 12 hex range, -1. A 0, doesn't matter. It's a miss. So that's the Union artillery completed. Now we choose our next chip. And it is Jackson. Okay, Jackson's priority now is to consolidate his line. We want to maybe withdraw 33rd Virginia, but that'll incur some withdrawal fire from the 7th Ohio, so that'll hurt. Not sure what we're going to do. Let me think about this and I'll bring you back. All right, so we want to protect Garnett and the 33rd Virginia. And to do so, I think we're going to activate Fulkerson first to shoot his 2 regiments into the flank of the 7th Ohio, even though it's long range. Hopefully we can get a disorder and a retreat, or 2 disorders and a retreat, and that will free up the 33rd Virginia to just move back 1 hex. Hopefully. We'll see. Probably will fail miserably. 37th Virginia, though, still on 7 strength points. They're disordered, though. At a range of 3, rifle musket, of course, is a -2. -1 for being disordered. No terrain effect, though. And the target is hit by flanking fire for another +1, so -2 overall on this die roll for the 37th Virginia. A 6 -2 is a 4 on the 7. Is a disorder check. So 7th Ohio is a 6. Oh, an 8 means they're disordered. It's a good start. 7th Ohio doesn't have the 37th Virginia in its frontal hexes, so it can't non-phase fire back at them. So now Fulkerson and the 23rd Virginia with 4 SPs also going to fire into the flank of the 7th Ohio. They're not disordered, though, so they have a range of 1, 2, 3 for the -2 with the rifles, and +1 for it. Oh, wait. No, it looks like the 23rd Virginia. So unfortunately, once I got down, I thought they were up on this elevation, but they're 1 elevation lower, so this little protuberance blocks their line of sight to the 7th Ohio. So to finish off Fulkerson's activation, the only other target this regiment has, the 23rd Virginia has, is the 110th Pennsylvania. They're a range of 3. They're in terrain for a -1, so it's a -3. 23rd Virginia is not disordered, so it's a -3 overall. And that's a 3 with 4 strength points. Is a D -1. 110th Pennsylvania is a cohesion of 4. 6 -1 is 5, which means that is a cohesion hit. And so now they're down to 2 SPs, and they retreat another hex, and they're basically going to be shattered. So now, again, like usual, to avoid my problems, I'm going to ignore them. And now we're going to activate Burke's brigade. So with Burke, we've moved him and the 42nd Virginia up to this stone wall at the middle road to protect this flank. At least give the Union something to think about. They do have rifled muskets, though, Sullivan's brigade, so they're going to be a pain. We've also changed the facing Allegheny battery, so now they're going to fire down into the 5th Ohio. So that's a range of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. For a smooth bore is 0. It's a mass target, though, and they're higher for +2 on a strength 4 smooth bore. And that's a 0. Can you see? Nope. So a 2 on a strength 4 artillery is a D -3. So they have a 6 cohesion, a 1 -3 is -2, so they're good. So since Tyler's brigade is done for the turn, we have a little bit more wiggle room to do things at our pace. So first we're going to rally the 21st Virginia. So we are adjacent to an enemy combat unit for +1. We have a cohesion of 6. A 2 + 1 is 3. So we're good. So and rallied. Unfortunately, Jackson didn't bring his ammo trains with him, so we don't get to remove the low ammo marker. All right, so after much hemming and hawing, I'm just leaving everything as it is. We're not shooting the 1st Virginia Battalion because it just is going to hurt when it comes back at them. So that's Burke's brigade completed. Now we activate Garnett's brigade, which is going to be the trickier one because what to do with the 33rd Virginia. Basically, if we withdraw the 33rd Virginia into this stonewall hex, because it costs 2 MPs to enter, we have to do a disorder check. And the 7th Ohio will get to shoot at us with with the muskets, prepared fire, all that jazz. So that's going to hurt. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to fire the 33rd Virginia. It has 5 strength points. It's disordered at a range of 1. Hopefully we can get the 7th Ohio out into an automatic retreat, and they get a bad roll and they're shot back at us. And then our next activation, we can just calmly walk back into the stonewall hex free of the withdrawal fire. Anyway, so with the 5 SPs with rifles, they're range 1 and prepared for +2. There's no terrain. So, and they're disordered for -1, so it's a +1 overall. Is a 9. Okay, so that's a 5 column. A 9 is a 1-step loss and a D +2. So ironically, that's kind of not what we wanted. I mean, I guess it's the better result technically, but we would have rather have had an automatic disorder. So with a D +2 now, a 5, see that's fine enough to stay there. So with 6 strength points, they're going to shoot back. They have the muskets and a range of 1 prepared fire. So, sorry, they don't get the prepared fire because they're disordered. So that's good at least. So they get +2 for the muskets, -1 for disorder is a +1. And I think that's it. There's no terrain in the 33rd Virginia's hex, so it's just a +1 on the 6 column. So 7 is a automatic disorder. 33rd Virginia is already disordered, so they lose a step down to 4, and they retreat 1 hex. And because the 33rd Virginia suffered a step loss, we had to check if it's Garnett. 6, he's okay. And okay, I guess that kind of gets them where they wanted to go anyway. So that's one way to do it. Now that also opens this shooting lane for the 2nd Virginia and the 27th Virginia. So the 2nd Virginia is firing with 6 strength points. It's rifles, range of 2 for a +1. And no other modifiers apply, so it's just +1. A 7 on the 6th table is an automatic disorder. 7th Ohio is already disordered, so they just suffer a step loss and retreat. So they're firing back with... Oh no, sorry, they don't get to fire back because they've already shot at the 33rd Virginia, so they just retreat. We're not going to shoot the 4th Virginia for the same reason we didn't shoot the 1st Virginia. So I think that's going to be Jackson's activation complete. That was a lot. And just one other thing to note, the 110th Pennsylvania is collapsed. I forgot that you do it as soon as it goes under 50% strength points. So he's collapsed. And now we are going to pull the next activation marker, which is Jackson again. I'll bring you right back to where we were. Okay, so Jackson's second activation. Burke's brigade doesn't get to activate anymore because they're out of command. So that includes the Allegheny battery, which we should have switched back to Jackson in the divisional orders phase, but That's me being stupid. So first we'll go ahead and activate Fulkerson's brigade, and all we're going to do is spend 1 movement point to refuse the 37th Virginia's left flank to get the cavalry into our firing arc. And that's all we're going to do with Fulkerson's brigade. And now all we have left is Garnett's brigade, and we're going to rally, or attempt to rally, the 33rd Virginia. So they're stacked with Garnett for the -1, and that's the only, and their cohesion is 7. 3 minus 2 is 1, or is 2, sorry. And which means they recover. We could fire at the 7th Ohio with the 2nd Virginia again. Might as well. So 2nd Virginia has 6 SPs firing at a range of 3 with their rifle muskets is a -2. There's no terrain in the 7th Ohio, so it's just a -2. 6 on the 6 column is a D+2. Cohesion is a 5. A 9 fails miserably, so they take another step loss. They're down to 3, retreat 1, and they collapse as well. And I think we're good for the rest of Jackson's division. I don't think there's anything else we need to do. So with that, we'll pull our next chip. And it is the random event. We roll, so 1. We needed an 8 or a 9, I believe. So no random event. And it is the cavalry. So the only thing the cavalry are going to do is shoot their carbines at the refused left flank of the 37th Virginia. So the 1st Michigan has 3 SPs with the carbine at a range of 2 is -1. -1 for the stonewall hex is a -2. So it's a -2 on the 3 strength column. It's a -2 is nothing. The 37th Virginia does get to fire back, however. It has 7 SPs. Halved means it only gets to fire 3 back into the 1st Michigan. So it's a +1 for the range, -1 for this stone wall. It's a 0. And -1 for the disorder is a -1. A 0, -1, doesn't matter, it's nothing. The 1st Ohio with 2 strength points. If the 1st Michigan was successful, I think we would shoot it, but I don't think we might as well. It's a free shot because they already shot this brigade, or this brigade activation. So 2 SPs, let's just roll to see if it's high enough to even worth figuring out the 0. Yep, see, we don't even have to figure out the DRMs. So that's the Union Cavalry turn complete. Pull next chip. It is Ashby. So choose battery is down here. The Parrot gun has low ammo, but I think we can still get a shot off onto the 39th Illinois at a range of 9. So a Parrot range of 9 is a -1. -2 for the low ammo is a -3 at the same elevation, but it's masked, so it's a -2. And a 0, it's nothing. So that's choose battery, and now the only other thing we had left to do was move the 7th Virginia, which we kind of did just off screen to the bottom here to cover off the right flank. All right, so the Confederates got 2 artillery AMs in a row, and basically all they did was, well, they fired off all their artillery, which is kind of now surrounding the Union advance. They inflicted 1 step loss on the 5th Ohio after doing 2 disorders on them, and the 39th Illinois is disordered, but other than that, the Union is safe, or they can still advance. Kimball is still looking threatening with his brigade, while Sullivan takes the brunt of the Confederate artillery. So we only have 4 AMs left in the cup. As you can see, Shields is one of them. So I'm going to do everybody else and then bring you back when, or I'm going to do everything else off screen, I should say, and bring you back when Shields is the next activation. All right, so we finally have Shields' activation on the next to last activation of the turn. Basically, Dom got to fire off his artillery from Pritchard's Hill and couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Didn't do anything. So Sullivan and Kimball are forced to attack up Sandy Ridge in the face of this artillery that is not disrupted. So I'm going to go ahead and think, move, do all that jazz, bring you back when everything's done. So Kimball is bringing up his brigade. 67th Ohio got on this little plateau within 3 hexes of the Allegheny Battery with its smoothbores, and so they get an approach fire, non-phasing fire chance. So they're a strength of 4, range of 3. This is going to hurt, boys, but you know, buckle down for king and country kind of thing. Smoothbores at a range of 3 or 0, but they get to resolve on the small arms table. They can use rapid fire. So basically, the Allegheny Battery is going to get to fire twice at the approaching Union units. The other modifiers are they're higher. It's a massed unit, so +2 on this die roll. Again, it's going to hurt, but it's going to be worth it. A 6 on the small arms table for a 4 strength unit is a D +1. So the 67th Ohio is a cohesion of 6. And 9, unfortunately, disorders them. And now the Allegheny Battery gets to fire again. So still +2. An 8 on the 4 table is an automatic disorder. So the 67th Ohio, 67th Ohio loses a step, is down to 8 steps. Retreats 1 hex, and now we check to see if Kimball is still alive. On a 0, he's dead. 5, he's good. Not ideal, but at least we have the 8th Ohio up there. So I'm going to finish Kimball's movement and bring you back if anything else happens. So catch you up. 5th Ohio rallied. Kimball's brigade kept moving forward as far as they could. The woods and the hill and the slopes kind of slowed them down. 13th Indiana is trying to get up in there too, though. Now they're within 3 of the West Augusta Battery. The smoothbores are going to fire with their -2 DRM at a range of 3. Again, they use their small arm chart. It's a massed unit, not in any kind of terrain, higher elevation, so +2 for that. -2 for the DRM, though, is a nothing, so straight die roll. A 2 on the 3 small arms column is nothing, but they do get to roll again. And a 2 straight up, also still nothing. So that's the West Augusta Battery, or the smoothbores, and now the 12-pound howitzers at a range of 3. They get a +1 and are on the small arms chart. So they're a +1. They're not low ammo. Strength only of 1 though. Higher elevation, mass target. So it's a +3, and it's only a 3. On the small arms chart is nothing. The 13th Indiana continues its movement. So the rest of Sullivan's brigade just moved up outside of the 3 hex reaction range of the Rockbridge artillery. Anyway, so that's Sullivan's brigade's movement's done. That's Kimball's brigade's movement's done. And that is now the only chit left is the Confederate artillery. At least the in-command ones, which are only those on Sandy Ridge, which will get a fatigue marker. But I don't think it's going to matter. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude all these attacks. So the West Augusta Battery and the Rockbridge batteries are the only ones that are going to be able to fire. The other 2 batteries are out of command, so they only got 2 activations. So I'll resolve them and let you know if there's any casualties. Okay, so the West Augusta Battery did manage to disorder the 13th Indiana. However, the smoothbore is now out of ammo, so it's effectively out of the fight. And since Jackson moved up without his ammo trains, there's no way we can restock that ammo, which is going to severely hamper our ability to defend this hill, because that was basically the linchpin of this defensive line. So Sullivan is going to be able to really take advantage of that, I think. But that's all the activations completed for the 1700 turn. So there's only 2 turns left, and now let's look over the battlefield and see what we have going for us. So here we are at the top of Sandy Ridge. The Union attack is developing, and this is one of those times when I I goofed as the Confederates and as the Union. I goofed as everybody, if we're being honest. So 2 regiments are collapsed with Tyler's brigade. The 1st West Virginia and the 29th Ohio are disordered. And if we had disordered the 7th Indiana, that would have meant that all regiments in the brigade were either collapsed or disordered. And that would have rendered Tyler's brigade combat ineffective. So if we had just disordered the 7th Indiana, then we would have made Tyler's brigade combat ineffective. So that was my goof, but it was also Tyler's goof because he should have just rallied somebody, probably kept 1 regiment in reserve, maybe, so that that was going to be not disordered. That was his goof there. So it'll be hard for Kimball to kind of get everybody up there at the same time, but I think once he does, Jackson's going to have a hard time keeping his position because he just doesn't have enough infantry on Sandy Ridge to really repulse that attack. I think we're going to have to pull out the Allegheny battery, maybe get 1 more shot off, but we want to save it somehow. And then once we pull them off the ridge and the Union infantry get onto Sandy Ridge, we're going to have to start refusing that flank and probably retreat down this road here, or see if we can maybe hold out maybe around the glass house, kind of turn our line and hold the glass house, because as long as we hold 1 hex, we get to, or 1 stonewall hex, we get to boost our victory in the Confederate favor. While on the Union side, we just need to have Sullivan's brigade distract towards the south, keep the 42nd Virginia and the 5th Virginia from being able to come up the middle road and reinforce Jackson. So they're going to take casualties, but their job is crucial to draw the fire of these 2 artillery batteries, prevent the reinforcement of Jackson, and hopefully once the collapse starts up here, they can kind of join in on the attack. And hopefully next turn, Dahm will figure out how to aim and get some hits on the Confederate artillery in his counter battery fire. But yeah, that's the 2nd turn, the 1700 hours turn completed. I'm sure, I know even as I was playing, I missed some rules and probably some DRMs, so sorry about that. But I think I'm happy with how this playthrough is going so far, and I hope you are too. Let me know in the comments what you think. Otherwise, I'll see you next video for the 1800 hours turn. Bye for now.